When I pulled up to the cabin that Friday evening, the mountain air hit me like a long-lost friend. After 3 weeks buried under blueprints and meetings in the city, nothing felt better than stepping onto my own land. 150 acres of untouched wilderness wrapped around a small wooden cabin, and my pride and joy, the gazebo overlooking the lake. I parked the truck, stretched out the stiffness in my back, and took a deep breath. The scent of pine and damp earth filled my lungs. Home. I grabbed my overnight bag from the back seat and walked up the gravel path, boots crunching beneath me. Everything looked just the way I left it. The gate locked, the cabin shutters closed, the gazebo standing tall against the backdrop of the cliffs. Nothing out of place, just the quiet hum of cicadas and the occasional call of a hawk circling overhead. I smiled. This was why I kept coming back here. No phone calls, no deadlines, no HOA board breathing down my neck. Just me and the mountain. That peace lasted exactly 5 minutes. I opened the old mailbox by the gate and spotted an official-looking envelope sitting on top of a few catalogs. The logo at the corner made my stomach turn. Summit Peaks HOA. I frowned. Summit Peaks was the new development down the mountain, a bunch of cookie-cutter vacation homes stacked too close together for my liking. Why the hell was their HOA writing to me? I tore it open right there by the mailbox, scanning the letter. The more I read, the more my eyebrows climbed toward my hairline. "Dear Mr. Clark," it began, in that polite but threatening tone only HOA bureaucrats could master. "According to updated community maps, the structure identified as a gazebo and the adjacent recreational area located on your property are now designated as a shared amenity for Summit Peaks HOA members." I let out a sharp laugh, startling a squirrel nearby. The letter went on. They were requesting 3 sets of keys. For the main gate, the cabin, and the gazebo to ensure proper community access. Oh, and they'd kindly attached an invoice for $4,000 in annual maintenance fees for the shared recreational space. I leaned against the fence, reading it again just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. They really thought my private gazebo, the one I designed and built with my own hands, was theirs now? That I was just going to hand over keys to strangers so they could throw birthday parties on my deck? "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered. I stuffed the letter into my jacket pocket and walked up to the cabin, shaking my head. Maybe it was a clerical error. Some overzealous HOA clerk misread a boundary line on a map. Whatever it was, it didn't concern me. I wasn't part of their little kingdom. My deed was ironclad. The property line marked and surveyed long before those houses sprouted like weeds down the hill. By the time I unlocked the cabin and set down my bag, I was already half laughing again. I called Lisa, my wife, to tell her about the letter. She chuckled, told me not to stress, said it sounded like one of those neighbor drama stories she liked reading online. "Let 'em dream, Danny," she said. "They can't touch you." I wanted to believe that. I really did. That night, sitting on the gazebo steps with a beer in hand, watching the last rays of sunlight shimmer across the lake, I felt the usual calm settle over me. Whatever that letter was, it wasn't my problem. At least, that's what I thought then. I rolled back up the mountain road a week later, expecting the same quiet peace I always found here. But something felt off the moment I turned onto the gravel drive. Tracks. Fresh tire tracks snaked across the dirt, wide and deep, like someone had driven something heavier than a sedan up here. My stomach twisted. Nobody had permission to be on my land. I crested the hill, and then I saw them. At first, I thought it was a family picnic. A couple of folding tables were set up near the gazebo, covered with platters of food and coolers of drinks. A group of people lounged in lawn chairs, music playing from a portable speaker. Kids were running around, their shrieks echoing down the ridge. Smoke curled from a small portable grill, the smell of hot dogs drifting my way. I stopped the truck in disbelief, engine idling. They were right there, on my property, under my gazebo. I got out, slammed the door harder than I meant to, and marched toward them. A balding guy in cargo shorts noticed me first, raising his beer in a casual salute. "Hey, man," he called. "Great spot you've got here." I stopped a few feet away, planting my hands on my hips. "Who are you people? What the hell are you doing here?" He gave me a lopsided grin. "We're from Summit Peaks, HOA. They said this place was now a community picnic area. Pretty sweet, huh? We figured we'd break it in with the Knitting Club barbecue." "The what?" I blinked. A woman wearing a visor and holding a clipboard stepped forward. Her badge read HOA Event Coordinator. "Yes, we've scheduled the gazebo for this weekend's social gathering. Didn't you get the memo?" she asked, as if I were the one crashing their party. My mouth opened, closed. "Lady, this is my land. This gazebo is mine. You're trespassing." She frowned, flipping through some papers clipped to her board. No. According to the revised maps from the HOA, this is now a shared community amenity. We have documentation." She held up a printed page like it was gospel, but when I reached for it, she pulled it back, hugging it to her chest. "Nice try, but this isn't up for debate," she sniffed. I felt my pulse climbing. "Pack up. Leave. Now." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. One man near the grill muttered, "Thought this was all sorted." "Yeah, well, it's not," I snapped. The woman squared her shoulders. "You're being very uncooperative. We've already informed members they can use this space. Turning them away is a violation of HOA policy." I almost laughed. "I'm not in your damn HOA." Her lips thinned. "Regardless, we're here under official approval. You can take it up with the board." "Fine," I said, pulling out my phone. "You can explain it to the sheriff." I dialed. My thumb trembled slightly. Not from fear, but sheer frustration boiling over. By the time I hung up, I could see people starting to gather their things, grumbling under their breath. When the deputy arrived 20 minutes later, I laid out everything. The letter, the unauthorized gathering, the claim over my gazebo. The officer nodded sympathetically, but his hands were tied. "They're gonna keep trying, sir," he warned. "You'll probably need to get a lawyer involved." "Yeah," I sighed, watching the last SUV bounce down my driveway. "I'm starting to figure that out." The next morning, I found another letter stuffed under my windshield wiper, sealed with that same smug HOA logo. "You have violated HOA regulations by unlawfully evicting members from designated common property. Further incidents will result in fines and legal action." I crumpled it in my fist. So it wasn't a mistake after all. It was a damn siege. A few days later, I hired a guy from town to help reinforce the gate. We added a heavy-duty chain and a new lock, just to be safe. I wasn't about to let a bunch of entitled strangers treat my property like their community playground. That weekend, I loaded up the truck with supplies, new chairs for the gazebo, some lumber for repairs, and drove up the mountain, ready to reclaim some peace. Except the peace was already gone. Halfway up the drive, I slammed the brakes. The gate was open. Not just unlocked, wide open. And the chain? Cut clean through, the ends dangling like limp metal noodles. A pair of new signs had been bolted onto the posts. "Private road. HOA. Use only." I stared at the words, disbelief tightening in my chest. They weren't even subtle anymore. I pulled forward slowly, scanning the tree line. Further up the hill, I spotted two men standing beside a folding table, both wearing matching polo shirts and lanyards. "HOA security," their badges red, like some kind of parody. One of them stepped into the road, hand raised like a traffic cop. "Sir, you'll need to stop here. This is a restricted access road for HOA members." I killed the engine, stepped out, and walked toward them, fists clenched at my sides. "You're on private property," I said coldly. "My property." The taller one frowned. "According to Summit Peak's HOA, this roadway and the adjacent facilities are now under HOA jurisdiction. Do you have your HOA access pass?" "Access pass," I barked a laugh. "I don't belong to your damn HOA. This is my land. Check the county records." They exchanged a look. The shorter guy pulled out a walkie-talkie and muttered something into it. "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to turn around. Unauthorized vehicles aren't permitted beyond this point." "Or what?" I stepped closer. "You going to fine me for driving on my own land?" The taller man's jaw tensed. "We'll have to notify law enforcement for trespassing." I smiled, cold and hard. "Do it." Before they could reach for their radios, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 myself. "I'd like to report illegal trespassing on my property," I told the dispatcher, loud enough for them to hear. 2 men blocking my driveway, unauthorized signs posted, and a cut gate lock. They stiffened. One of them shifted uncomfortably. By the time the deputy arrived, I'd taken photos of everything. The cut lock, the fake signs, the so-called security guards. I handed over my deed, the property survey, every scrap of proof I'd brought from the county office. The deputy walked back and forth between me and the HOA guys, scratching his head. "They claim this is now part of their community land," he muttered. "But their maps, well, it doesn't match county records." "No shit," I growled. "They made it up." He sighed. "Look, Mr. Clark, this is shaping up to be a civil dispute. I can't arrest them just for standing here, but I've warned them to leave." The HOA men packed up their table and walked off down the road, shooting me cold looks over their shoulders. But the signs stayed bolted in place. I watched them go, frustration burning under my skin. The deputy clapped me on the shoulder. "You'll probably need a lawyer for this one," he said quietly. "I already figured," I said, eyes narrowing at the metal signs gleaming in the afternoon sun. They weren't giving up. Neither was I. The next Monday, I sat across from a land use attorney in a downtown office that smelled faintly of stale coffee and printer ink. Her name was Marissa Lopez, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, the kind of lawyer who looked like she'd bite through steel if it meant winning. I handed her every document I had. The letter from the HOA, the photos of the cut chain, the fake signs, copies of my deed and survey. She flipped through them quickly, frowning deeper with each page. "They're bold, I'll give them that," she muttered. "But stupid. These so-called updated maps of theirs, not filed anywhere official. They have no legal standing." "So what the hell are they playing at?" I asked. Marissa leaned back, tapping her pen against her notepad. "Sounds like they're trying to establish de facto use. Keep acting like it's theirs long enough. Maybe scare you off, pressure you into signing something. I've seen HOAs pull stunts like this, but going after a property outside their jurisdiction? That's next level." I exhaled slowly. "They picked the wrong guy." She smirked. "Damn right. First step, we hire an independent surveyor to reaffirm your boundaries. If this goes to court, we'll need hard data." "Already scheduled," I said. "He's coming Friday." "Good. In the meantime, don't engage with them directly. Let me handle correspondence." She scribbled something on a legal pad, then looked up. "And brace yourself. They're not done." She wasn't wrong. 2 days later, an official envelope arrived at my home in the city, stamped Summit Peak's HOA legal notice. I tore it open, already feeling my blood pressure spike. It was a formal notification of legal action. Apparently, the HOA was suing me. Their demands were absurd. They claimed the gazebo and adjacent 2 acres were part of a community recreational zone erroneously omitted from prior filings. They were seeking transfer of title for that portion of land, plus $12,000 in unpaid. Community fees dating back 4 years. 4 years. Before I even inherited the place. I stared at the letter, a bitter laugh escaping me. You sons of bitches. Later that night, Lisa and I sat at the kitchen table going over the papers. They're really trying to steal it, aren't they? She asked quietly. Looks like it, I said grimly. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. Just got their filing. Pure intimidation. We'll crush it. But things were heating up outside the courtroom, too. I woke up to a barrage of notifications. Friends had tagged me in posts from a local neighborhood Facebook group. One I hadn't even known existed. The HOA had posted an announcement, Community Victory, reclaiming our historic gazebo. Summit Peaks HOA is working tirelessly to restore public access to a beloved landmark. Photos of my gazebo were plastered all over the post, alongside smiling faces from that damn knitting club barbecue. Comments flooded in. Can't wait to bring my grandkids. Finally, a place for community gatherings. My jaw clenched. They were spinning it as some noble crusade, painting me as the villain. A greedy outsider hoarding what belonged to the neighborhood. Lisa put a hand on my shoulder. Maybe we should go public too. Tell your side. I shook my head, scanning the comments, the growing crowd of virtual pitchforks. Not yet. First, I want proof. Let's bury them with facts. Because I wasn't just fighting a legal battle anymore. I was fighting a narrative, and they just made it personal. The surveyor showed up on Friday, an older guy named Hank who wore a battered Yankees cap and had the kind of no-nonsense air that made me trust him instantly. He unloaded his gear from the back of his pickup, glanced at the fake HOA use-only signs still nailed to my gate, and snorted. Looks like you've got yourself some real pieces of work here, he said. Yeah, I muttered. I'd call them trespassers, but that'd be too polite. We spent the whole day mapping the property. Hank double-checked every marker, every boundary stone, every line on the official county plat. By sunset, he had his report ready. My land was exactly where it was supposed to be, every inch well within my legal deeded boundaries. No overlap, no easements, no right-of-way, he confirmed, signing the paperwork. Whatever that HOA's claiming, it ain't real. I felt a knot loosen in my chest. Thanks, Hank. Seriously. Happy to do it. But heads up, they're not gonna back down easy. I knew he was right. And sure enough, that weekend brought a new twist. Marissa called Saturday morning, her tone sharp. We dug deeper into HOA's filings. Guess what? 3 board members bought up empty lots that border your southern fence line last year. I froze. Why? Looks like they're trying to assemble a larger parcel, probably planning to sell it off as one big development package. But your land's smack in the middle of their map. They need that gazebo lot to connect it all. I sat down hard on the cabin steps, staring out at the lake. So that's what this is. A land grab. Exactly. And they tried to shortcut the process by faking maps and bullying you into handing it over. I ran a hand through my hair. What's next? We're filing a counterclaim Monday. Fraud, trespassing, harassment. And I've got a friend in the DA's office who might be interested if we can prove they tampered with municipal records. I let out a low whistle. You think they forged official maps? Not on the county plat, but they submitted altered diagrams to the HOA membership and used those to pressure you. That's misrepresentation at best, criminal fraud at worst. Later that afternoon, I installed new cameras around the property, motion-activated, with live alerts sent straight to my phone. I wasn't taking chances anymore. The system paid off faster than I expected. That evening, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the feed, and there he was, one of the HOA board members, climbing over the gate with bolt cutters in hand. He sliced the replacement chain clean through, then waved in a small group of people carrying folding chairs and coolers. I watched, stunned, as they unlocked my gazebo door, using a key I didn't give them, and started setting up inside like they owned the place. I hit record, called the sheriff, and waited. 20 minutes later, flashing lights lit up the driveway. The same deputy as before stepped out, rubbing his temples when he saw me. "Mr. Clark," he sighed. "Looks like they really don't know when to quit." "Nope," I said, handing him my phone with the footage already queued up. "But now I've got them on tape." And this time, I wasn't going to let them walk away. The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale coffee, the kind of place where lives got sorted into winners and losers under flickering fluorescent lights. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Marissa, who looked like a wolf in a tailored blazer, her eyes sharp and her files stacked high. Across from us sat the Summit Peaks HOA board, 3 smug faces and their lawyer, a man who kept adjusting his tie like it was choking him. The judge called us to order. I felt my pulse steady as Marissa stood, clearing her throat. "Your Honor," she began, sliding a thick binder across the table, "we submit into evidence the official county survey, performed independently last month, confirming that my client's property lines have not changed. Further, we present video footage showing members of the HOA board illegally entering Mr. Clark's property, cutting his gate lock, and using an unauthorized key to access his private gazebo." The judge raised an eyebrow, flipping through the binder. "Is this true, counselor?" he asked the HOA's attorney. The man fumbled. We contend that the gazebo was part of a community easement established." "There is no easement," Marissa snapped. "Not in the county records, not in the title history, not in the subdivision plat. They fabricated a map and circulated it internally to justify encroaching on private land." She clicked a remote. On the courtroom monitor, the footage played, the board member hopping the gate, snipping the chain, waving in the party. The judge watched in stony silence. When the video ended, he turned to the HOA lawyer again. "Well?" Their attorney sighed. "My clients acted under the belief they were enforcing HOA rights based on the information provided to them." Marissa didn't miss a beat. "And who provided that information?" She stepped forward, holding up a copy of the altered HOA map. "Who doctored this map to include Mr. Clark's property?" The board members shifted uncomfortably. Finally, the president, Linda Blake, spoke up, her voice brittle. "It was necessary. We needed that parcel to complete the Greenbelt plan. It would have benefited the entire community." Marissa arched an eyebrow. "And was that why you funneled $18,000 of HOA funds into paying off your second mortgage last year, Mrs. Blake? Was that also for the community?" A ripple went through the courtroom. Linda's face drained of color. "That's irrelevant. It's fraud," Marissa cut in. "And it establishes a pattern. Misusing funds, falsifying maps, illegally occupying private property." The judge held up a hand. "That's enough. I've heard what I need to hear." He leaned forward, voice grave. "I'm ruling in favor of Mr. Clark. Full ownership rights confirmed. The HOA is ordered to cease all claims, remove all signage, and pay compensatory damages. Additionally, I'm referring the matter of document tampering and financial misconduct to the district attorney's office for further investigation." Linda's mouth fell open. One of the board members muttered, "Oh, shit." A bailiff approached Linda as she started to protest, cuffs gleaming in his hands. "I didn't mean," she tried. But the bailiff was already leading her away. Marissa sat down beside me, a satisfied smile tugging at her lips. "Well, Danny," she murmured, "I'd say we won." I exhaled, the weight of the last few months finally peeling off my shoulders. "Yeah," I said quietly. "We sure as hell did." A month later, the mountain air felt different. Cleaner, quieter. Like the land itself had exhaled after months of tension. I stood at the end of my freshly graveled driveway, admiring the new gate glinting under the afternoon sun. A solid steel beast with an electronic keypad, camera, and motion sensor lights. Fort Knox would have been jealous. I punched in the code and watched the gate swing open with a satisfying hum. No more chains to cut. No more locks to break. No more HOA stooges waltzing onto my land like they owned it. I drove up slowly, taking in the view. The fake HOA use-only signs were gone, torn down per court order. The path was mine again, untouched, untrespassed. For the first time in months, the property felt truly mine again. When I pulled up to the gazebo, Lisa was already waiting, sitting on the porch swing with a beer in hand. She lifted it in a silent toast as I climbed out of the truck. "Looks good," she said, nodding toward the gate behind me. "Damn right it does." I grabbed my own beer from the cooler by the steps and plopped down beside her. We sat in comfortable silence, gazing out at the lake. The water shimmered gold under the setting sun, the ridgeline casting long shadows across the far shore. On the lawn nearby, a small bonfire crackled inside a stone pit. I'd saved every letter, every fake invoice, every threatening notice the HOA had sent me. Tonight, they were all kindling. I tossed another envelope onto the flames, watching it curl and blacken before bursting into ash. "One by one," I muttered. "Good riddance," Lisa chuckled. "Therapeutic, huh?" "More than therapy ever could be." We sipped our beers, the fire popping and hissing as the last scraps of paper burned away. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, its voice rising and fading into the twilight. I leaned back, feeling the weight of the past months lift off my chest for good. The lawsuits, the trespassing, the lies, all of it behind me now. Lisa nudged me gently. "So, what's next, Danny?" I looked over at her, then at the gate, at the empty road beyond, at the untouched silence of the woods stretching around us. I raised my bottle in a slow salute. "Next," I said, a grin tugging at my lips. "I enjoy my damn gazebo, and no one's getting a key." She laughed, warm and easy, resting her head against my shoulder. Together, we watched the last embers fade beneath the mountain sky, the wind scattering the ashes across the grass. No signs, no intruders, no more claims. Just me, my land, and the quiet I'd fought like hell to protect.